So thank you so much, everyone, for coming to this session where we are focused on putting our passion into action, effective community engagement. And this workshop is going to be really focused on a story-based approach to learning from two really amazing speakers and leaders in regenerative agriculture who will share their stories. And my invitation to you all is to listen with wonder and openness to everything they're about to share, and also to look for patterns and wisdom that you can reflect and apply to your own local context. So one of our stories is based in Kenya, so probably very different from where you live. And the other one is based in Highlands, North Carolina, which might be different or might be very similar to where you live. And we all know that every local context has a lot of nuance and uniqueness, and that there are also really guiding threads and wisdom that we can learn from each other's stories. So that's my invitation to you. If you like to write, I encourage you to get a pen and paper or open a document. We'll be doing some reflection after each of the stories that we hear today. So I also want to invite any youth who are here to change your name and put a Y at the front of your name so that we can put youth into breakout spaces together and just meet our own seminar rules around youth and adult ratios and all of that, and also just create space for youth to be with one another in breakouts. So, Dr. Karambu, are you here? I'm not seeing you quite yet. I think we might switch the orders of the speakers if Dr. K is not here yet. Okay. So Joey, I think that we'll start with you. I don't think Dr. Karambu is here quite yet, so hopefully that will give her more time to join us. And so I want to welcome our first speaker, Joey Kyle, who is the manager of the Many Hands Peace Farm, a really amazing project that he'll tell you some more about, which is at the Mountain Learning and Retreat Center, a UU camp and conference space in Highlands, North Carolina. Thank you, Joey.
No problem. Thank you, Allie. So as Allie mentioned, my name is Joey Kyle. I am lucky enough to be. Can everyone hear okay? Is audio okay?
It's not the best. I can kind of hear you. It's a little fuzzy.
Okay, I don't know. Let me see what I can do. I'm using a nice microphone. It's like speaker. Oh wait. Okay. How about now?
Much better.
Okay, sorry about that. I was using webcam. But yeah, let me give you a little peek of where I am. I am lucky enough. Let's see, that's nice, a little foggy. But I am up on 4,200 feet elevation in Highlands, North Carolina. So I grew up in central South Carolina, and I attended the UU congregation in Columbia, and kind of heard inklings of this place called the Mountain Retreat and Learning Center. For those of you who don't know, it's like a camp and conference center and a summer camp. And so my sister attended there, and I was lucky enough to do that in high school and thought I'd never come back. And thought I was going to be studying animal consciousness for the rest of my life. Like I went to school for animal behavior, studying fire ants, studying chicken behavior, and then I fell in love with farming, largely through volunteer opportunities. I've been lucky enough to get a decent amount of experience just passively watching experts, working alongside them in the organic farming world, and kind of transitioned to that afterwards. I've done some volunteering through WOOF, which is like a way that you can trade your labor for room and board at organic farms across the world. And then came back to where I went to summer camp to now be the farm manager. And so the mountain has been around for about 40 years as a UU affiliated camp and conference center, and has developed its own programming alongside what it does for summer camp. And now we're open 12 months a year. Obviously, pandemic has affected retreat business, but we are open for summer camp this year, and we're delighted to be doing that. So myself, I kind of have an affinity for waste management. A lot of what I've been passionate about is composting systems, and wild foods. And so since coming here, we started going to a farmer's market, because we are, in essence, an educational farm. So about 10 years ago, the Mountain, as a retreat center, decided we would like to, in addition to our normal nature-based educational programming, do some more food-based education. And so they decided to install a greenhouse, install a chicken house, and start keeping chickens. And I came on board right at the time that we decided we wanted to not only serve guests some of the produce that we have here, but also start to go into farmers markets. And so what we've been able to do is to provide there's a tug of war, definitely, of selling our delicious produce in town and serving, enriching our guests that come here. And so as a retreat center throughout the year, I give farm tours to all sorts of different groups. We are a host site for AA groups. We are a host site for father-son bonding groups, for groups that do beading workshops, that do yoga workshops. And it's a pretty amazing place to kind of have that transient community come in. And we are a beautiful natural location with lots of like diverse ecosystems. We have an incredible amount of precipitation. So we have perhaps 90 to 110 inches of rain a year, which is roughly 2, 3, 4 times the national average. And so we then have a lot of wild plants and mushrooms that are very unique to this habitat. And my background is a little bit in permaculture. So I'm a certified permaculture designer. And a lot of what permaculture is, and I think the next speaker will also touch on it from a more international perspective, is a design philosophy that a lot of people call beyond organic farming. So organic farming can still be kind of a gnarly industry in that it still does rely on chemicals and can tear up the land. But instead, permaculture is less top down, like I want to build an apple orchard in straight rows, and instead see the landscape as an ecosystem, to see the farm as an ecosystem where people interact, where animals interact, and where plants can complement each other, and it's not just an extractive thing. And so I'm very grateful to be in a place where I can experiment, where I can make mistakes, and we have a diverse array of things that we can focus on. So every year we try a couple things and see what happens. Maybe the best example of how permaculture is in play here is we have, through faithify.org, the UU crowdfunding website, started a 1-acre food forest. And so the idea of a food forest is, instead of just planting those apple trees in rows, I may have several apple trees, but right next to them are little shrubs called gummies, which are like nitrogen fixing berry trees, but they're smaller, so they're not going to crowd out the apple trees. I've got little herbs growing alongside that. I've got vines growing along the base. I've got mushrooms growing in wood chips at the base of those trees. And so a lot of what permaculture does is stacking functions. And so instead of just having apples, which only fruit once a year, and in a period of climate change may not reliably fruit once a year, instead I can get multiple harvests out of one space in what's called like a guild. So our food forest area has lots of little guilds, and we can kind of show people, for both our local community, because we kind of serve a lot of people from the Atlanta area and from the Asheville area. We're about 2 hours from both of those places. We can show them what we can do in our region to kind of try to harvest as much as you can throughout the year from a homesteading basis. But it's not just harvesting food. We can also get fiber. We're getting a lot of entertainment. I mean, we keep chickens, a lot of which is just for people to go down there and enjoy. There's the phrase like chicken television. And so in this space, we're really providing an ability to commune with a farming environment in ways that a lot of these city slickers from Atlanta may not normally get a chance to do. And so we can definitely provide that for them. But as an educational farm, we're showing examples of what you can do, and definitely sharing our mistakes, which I think is very important. We live in a very wet environment, which is different than perhaps a lot of our guests are from, but we can show them how we can still harvest rainwater in our area, and how we can work with what's already growing naturally. So permaculture people are often described as lazy farmers or lazy gardeners because ideally, I'm a big fan of perennials, of planting things that I need to plant once and I can maintain them, and I don't need to tear up the soil every year to do that. And so I can show varieties of perennials that grow in this area. Some of my favorites would be the sunchoke or Jerusalem artichoke. So it's a native sunflower plant that you plant one little tuber of that looks like a potato, and it'll grow to be an 8-foot tall sunflower plant that year, and you'll never have to replant it again. So it's got benefits for pollinators, it's perennial, it's immortal, and it's a good carbohydrate source from year to year, and it can do well with various amounts of rain and various amounts of sunshine. So what I've done is kind of developed a list of things like the sunchoke that do well here, that I'm very easy and happy to share with people that I see at the farmers market, that I see that attend camp or conference here. And it's a pretty amazing kind of home base to kind of share with people that pass through here. And since coming here we have a farm here, but we're also surrounded by common land, national forest. And I have gotten my license to sell wild mushrooms. And I've gotten a lot better at identifying wild plants, and I have a license to sell about 25 species of wild mushrooms. And all throughout the Southeast, a lot of these mushrooms are quite common. And so what I can do is travel to national forests about 20 minutes away from where I am and drive on a dirt road and harvest maybe 30 pounds of chanterelle mushrooms in a couple hours, and then sell them for $600. That's help supporting the farm as an entity. And I can do it in a sustainable way. These are mushrooms that actually can't be grown indoors or in a cultivated environment. So the chanterelle is a delightful wild mushroom taste that really, I think, wild foods in general are a good incentive for us to protect our local forests and communities, because we're going to lose the chanterelle if we lose the forest. And so we've definitely been to forest council meetings and try to advocate for the wild mushroom perspective on why we shouldn't clear cut land. And so a lot of what I see of my privilege in this situation is I've had the privilege of sitting in one location for 5 years at this retreat center and developing a knowledge of wild plants and mushrooms, and be able to share that with people. And I freely give that away. Some of what I did this winter was develop just a really quick zine of the 40 common wild mushrooms that grow around here. We're selling it for very cheap. We're not making much money off of it. My goal is definitely just get it into the hands of the people. And I don't think mushrooms are gonna say they're not gonna put all the food on your table throughout the year, but they're a way that you can get free food. You can even make some income. A lot of low-income peoples all across the United States, especially on the West Coast, are immigrants and come to this country and can make decent money as wildcrafting mushroom harvesters, because there is still a market for it. And so I like sharing that information because I have the privilege of sitting in one place, paying attention to the seasonality. That's a lot of what it is just noticing changes in the landscape that perhaps not everyone can do, and I'm free and happy to give that information away. And so when campers come here, I love sharing that kind of information with them, to do that in a safe way. One of my favorite programs is called Farm Camp. So we do a 2-week middle school program, kind of showing kids exactly where food comes from. They're interacting with the local community at the farmers market, kind of seeing what it's like to run a small business in a sustainable way. Because we are a chemical-free farm. We don't even use a tiller at the moment. We're all human-powered, and we could show what's possible, basically. And it's taken a lot of hands, and that's the name of our farm, is Many Hands Peace Farm, because I am definitely just one. I guess I have 2 boots on the ground, but we need a lot more. And so at a retreat center like this, we have housing and we have food that we can provide, and it's pretty excellent, kind of to no money exchange, just to be able to trade knowledge and a place to stay and food for some time, because it definitely takes a lot of hands to make this food grow. And especially working with youth, it's critical to kind of combat some of those tendencies that we have unfortunately ingrained in us from a supermarket shopping perspective, to be able to instead show them what it takes to start. Even in a 2-week period, what we'll do is like plant microgreens, sunflower sprouts on day 1, and they can see what it takes to get them to a harvestable state in the time that they're here. They're both humbled by the work it takes, and I mean amazed by it, like both with raising chicks from start to finish, and harvesting seeds and planting seeds. It really does take the holistic perspective for a young person, especially if you live in an urban environment, to fully understand that. And we're definitely at a privileged retreat center, and so we kind of like to disseminate that information. And as guests come to stay here, hopefully they can take a piece of that away for them. So we do these workshops throughout the year with the goal of being, let's make sure that we can show what we've learned here as a permaculture oriented small farm, of what's possible in the community. And it's a pretty amazing home base. I definitely am very grateful for where I am.
Thank you so much, Joey. I love hearing. Oh, I have a bit of an echo. Joey, would you mind?
Yep.
Thanks. So just to see a UU Camp Center inspire such passion and growth in you to help inspire so many other people coming through the mountain to the Many Hands Peace Farm is just amazing. I love seeing the ripples, kind of exponential growth that happens just from planting seeds. So thank you for sharing that story with us. We will now soon go into breakout spaces to reflect on Joey's story that he just shared. And I have a couple questions to ground that. So I hope everyone was listening closely. And, your passion may not be mushrooms, but that example may have wisdom in it for you and whatever your local context is. So here's our 2 questions. What lessons have you learned from the story that you just heard, and how can you apply it to your local context? What strikes you vividly from this story? So, Rob, are we just about ready for our breakout discussion? So we'll have 8 minutes. We're trying to have 3 people in each space. So that means you have just a couple, 2.5 minutes per person to share, and silence to just reflect is also welcome too. You don't need to fill the whole time with sharing, but we do want to create space for reflecting back to one another. What lessons do you hear in this story, and how do you see ways to apply that to your local context? And also just what strikes you vividly? What's amazing about what Joey just shared? Rob, are we ready? Here we go. Okay. Welcome back. Okay, as people start trickling back in, oh, here we go. Now we're talking. Just went back up to 89 people. It's so good to be with 89 of you right now. So let's come back together as a full group to share in the chat. Thank you. I hope you had a rich discussion with a few other people. Now, if you could write in the chat something that you're learning or that's emerging for you in this session. It's okay to make mistakes. We relearn our connection to the land. I loved hearing about mushrooms, a great substitute for meat. The mountain is an amazing space. Go there if you're able. We talked about forests and the life of trees. Joey's story reminds me of my interest in woofing and learning how to farm, learning permaculture, learning mushrooms. Lisa says, for those of us who grew up in urban areas, we've lost the knowledge about what nature has to offer. So learning that we have to relearn or learn for the first time. I see more desire to learn about permaculture, talking about in one breakout group, the ethics of harvesting wild food on private or designated parkland. Evan says we had a lovely chat about how the earth knows what to grow and when, and how we can restore native plants as well as learning to forage. I see the rule of thirds, pick a third of the berries, leave a third of the berries to propagate, and a third of the berries for birds and nature. I see Isabel longing for stability of place. Sabrina says veganic permaculture is a thing. And from Reverend Kevin, the food forest is such a marvelous metaphor for living, as well as a marvelous concrete possibility. Awesome. So friends, we're still seeing if Dr. Karambu Ringera can join us. She did message me that she's having technical issues getting here, so I hope she'll be able to get here very soon. What I want to do, Jody, if you don't mind being put on the spot, I want to welcome you into this space. My friend Jody Lane is here. Jody is someone who I work with on a permaculture food forest. Here's Dr. Karambu. She's coming right now. So Jody and I work on a food forest in Austin, Texas called the Festival Beach Food Forest. And that's how I met Dr. Karambu, was that she came to Austin and visited us at our food forest here. So I want to give gratitude to Jody for helping to connect our project in Austin, Texas to Dr. Karambu Ringera's work in Kenya. Welcome, Dr. Ringera. It's great to have you with us. Let me see if, can you, I can't see you with everyone in the chat. Are you here? Can you hear me?
Yes, I am.
Awesome. Hi. Okay, so Dr. Karambu, are you ready to share your talk? I know you're just great. We'll move into, thank you so much for being here with us today.
That's great. Will you be able to share the screen so that I can see the PowerPoint? Oh, great. Absolutely marvelous. Okay, hello everyone. I apologize for coming in late. I had a technical issue just a few minutes before the workshop started. So I've been trying very hard to get here. So I'm grateful for your patience and thank you, Ali. My name is Dr. Karambu Ringera. I am the founder and president of International Peace Initiatives and the Tiriji Foundation. And I am so honored to be able to sharing with you a few thoughts about what I have learned doing the work that I do. I tell people that it is not something that I had like a 5-year plan and stuff like that. But in reflection, after 7-8 years of doing the work, I started asking myself, why do I do what I do? And in reflecting on that, I understood why I do what I do. And I also understood what the work has taught me. And that is what I'm going to share with you today. International Peace Initiatives and the Tiriji Foundation works with women who are challenged either by violence or poverty or HIV and AIDS, and children who've been made vulnerable by the same. And for me, these people are like societal wasteland, because I could see for women living with HIV and AIDS, very few people wanted to interact with them. And when parents of children died because of HIV and AIDS, relatives didn't want to take them. So I started thinking about why is that so? And so that is what I'm going to share with you this morning, or afternoon or evening, depending on where you are. So let's go to the next slide, please, and the next one. So I live in Kenya, hence the map of Kenya that showed up. And Kenya is on the eastern side of Africa. And if you look at the outline of Africa, the eastern coastline of Africa, it looks like a face. And Kenya is the eye. So I say that Kenya is the eye of Africa, and Africa is my sanctuary. That is where I do my Ubuntu. That is where I live my calling. Let's go on. The next one. Next one. I'm going to talk about regenerative practices for food equity and sustainability. And I feel like I can speak without the slides going, because it's taking a bit of the time. So just allow me to speak, and then Ali will share the PowerPoint with people, because then they'll understand what I'm talking about. And also because I have to be careful with the time. So Ali, please, when I have like 5 minutes to go, let me know so that I can stop there.
Okay.
So for us,
do you want to take down the slideshow, Dr. Ringera? Is that what you're saying? Okay.
Yeah, just take it down.
Great.
Yeah, that's great, Sawa. So at Tiriji, we think about regeneration. And regeneration for me, it's an igniting of a fire within someone, so that when that fire is lit, it comes in form of an awareness, an awakening, so to speak. And that awakening is a knowing that is within you. And when you know about something, or about how to solve a solution through that knowing, it lands in such a way that if you come across a similar or a different problem, you use that knowing to solve the new problem. So you don't have to keep going to someone else to tell you about solving every problem that you come across in your life. So, and I speak better when I'm speaking about myself, because that is how I have learned to do the work. And when I started working with the women and the children, I started thinking about a children's home and how I would feed the children. Because everybody was talking about food security, and food security is about having a lot of food on the table, but then no one was talking about how do we produce this food. So for me, the issue of food security is actually, for me, something that I call food sovereignty. And food sovereignty at International Peace Initiatives and the Tiriji Foundation is about the right of people to healthy and culturally appropriate food produced through ecologically sound and sustainable methods, and their right to define their own food and agriculture systems. Now, I come from an agricultural community, and we used to grow, where my grandmother used to farm was an amazing farm. It was a food forest. It was a food forest. Everything grew together. She used manure. She never used fertilizer, of course, those days. And everything was lush, healthy, and beautiful. Today, if you come to the place where I live, everybody right now has planted beans. A few people have planted corn, but everybody is growing the same food. And the seeds have to be bought from seed companies. Sometimes the government gives free fertilizer that has to go with certain seeds. And sometimes when this global seed is given, it doesn't grow. So a whole region can go without food because of the seed that was distributed for free. But you have to use a certain fertilizer to, to grow it. But the most amazing thing is that nowadays with these seeds, you can harvest your corn with weevils. When before, when we planted our original seed, it'd take even 3-4 years before you start seeing weevils. And then they used to preserve them with ash from firewood that they used to cook with. And so for me, that is where the notion of food security I started questioning. So you can have ample harvest because the seeds that you are being given, you're told that you're going to have an ample harvest. But then the corn itself is weightless. It doesn't have weight. And number two, if it is already being harvested with weevils, how far will that take you? You start using a lot of chemicals to preserve it. You start using, you start selling it early because you don't want your seed to completely be annihilated by the weevils and things like that. So that is not food security. So what I talk about is it's food sovereignty. People being aware and awakening to the importance of having our traditional seeds that we can preserve with natural means or through natural means and not through using chemicals. Meru, my county today, has one of the highest incidents of cancer in the whole of the country. And it's because of the chemicals that you're using on the land, the chemicals that are going into the water that you're drinking, and so on and so forth. And a lot of chemicals that you're using have been banned elsewhere, but our government is still selling these things to people. So what the work has taught me, therefore, is this, that I have to rethink the systems that have taught me a certain way of being. And I say that these systems have conditioned us. They have programmed us in certain ways. Education, religion, capitalism, patriarchy, all these systems, traditions and culture and things like that have been created and they are set to have us think in certain ways. It is up to me to figure out how those systems have shaped me, programmed me, and what I want to do about that. So when I learned about the crops and the seeds that are being sold and the fertilizers, the chemical fertilizers that are being sold to us, I started looking for our traditional corn seed. And that is what I grow now. And when people are complaining that their corn is coming out with weevils, ours is not. And things like that. So for me, regeneration then is a holding, a knowing of what I have been programmed to be and to think, and the choices that I make and the courage that I need to have to transform that. So when I started my work, I was working, like I said, with women living with HIV and AIDS and children who had lost their parents because of the same disease or poverty and violence. And when we went to the community to look for a piece of land to build a children's home, because the women thought they were going to die anytime. So they needed, or I felt that if they had a place where they knew their kids would come if they died, because I said, you're not God, how do you know you're going to die anyway? Because they kept saying they're going to die soon because of the disease. I asked them to go and look for free land, because I didn't have money to buy land, so that we could build a children's home. The community gave us a piece of wasteland, rocky piece of wasteland. And I felt like there are different kinds of wastelands, the environmental one, like the land that we were given, and a human one, like the disease that was challenging these ladies. And number 3, we have societal wastelands, a society that closes its eyes to the plight of the needy in the community. And so our work taught me that the calling is to reclaim these spaces, to reclaim these wastelands. Each one of us has had challenges. We also have our own wastelands. Only you can tell what your wasteland is. And so reclaim, the word reclaim, I made an acronym. And this is what it taught me. The R stands for taking responsibility. I'm talking about women who think they're going to die any minute. And I'm telling them, we need to take responsibility of this disease. To take responsibility is to be aware, to understand, to embody, and to own the circumstance, and to be accountable. And they were like, it's not our fault. It's not, I was like, it's okay. It's not your fault. But what are you going to do with this thing that now has fallen on your lap? And because most of the women had lost their husbands by the time they came to me, I would ask them, do you want your child to go to the streets? And if you live in Meru, the streets of Meru town is not where you want your child to grow. So we started the dance of understanding HIV and AIDS and how it works in the bodies and what the women could do to stay alive longer so that their children didn't have to go to the streets. The E stands for empoweredness. Empowerment is what someone does for you. So like we created forums where the women would be told about the disease, where they could go for medicine and things like that. That is what someone does for you. Empoweredness is what you choose to do with that gift, that which you've been given by someone else, but how are you going to use it to transform the circumstances of your life? And the C in reclaim stands for courage. Courage is not about lack of fear. Courage is, in spite of the fear, I choose to step into what I need to do to transform my circumstances. So I'm looking at this disease and I'm like thinking that someone will die like the next minute, like the women were thinking. But what we are saying is, in spite of that fear, courage is looking fear in the eye and saying, I will conquer this. Reclaim. The L stands for love and light. I would tell the women, everyone is born with love and light, divine love and light, and we can use it to love ourselves. Because you know, when you are in a situation like you have an incurable disease, there's a tendency to not love yourself. But we have to love ourselves. We have to shed the light within ourselves so that we can be that for someone else. And for the women to stand for their children, they had to be courageous and they had to discover their divine love and love themselves so that they could for their children. The A stands for adjustiveness. I didn't want to use the word adapt because you adapt when you want to look like everybody else, you know, like when you go to a place and you want to fit in. But adjustiveness is what a river does when it's flowing from the hills to the ocean. It comes across a lot of obstacles, rocks, boulders, and things. But it doesn't say, I mean, the river doesn't stop going where it's going because of the obstacles. It will chip away at the rock or find its way around the obstacle. The I stands for intuition. Everybody has divine wisdom and we can harness it to overcome our circumstances or to transform them. And the M stands for mindfulness, being grateful for what I have been given. I know it sounds odd to tell a woman who thinks that they're going to die any minute to be grateful because there is a gift that they've been given. There's something that they have that can help them on this journey. And so the other thing that we learned in this conversation about reclaiming our wastelands was there are no problems or challenges. Challenges are opportunities calling to be invited in. And so this reclaim learning then brought us to a place of recognizing regeneration is about stepping into our utu-ness. Utu is a Swahili word that means humaneness. Ubuntu is I am because you are. But Utu is what informs my being human. And that is what we call Utu. And in Utu, you recognize that you're never alone. It is about all of us. We're interdependent and we're interconnected. Problems are opportunities calling to be invited in. Life is a gift. Life is not a punishment. Life is an invitation to dance. How do I choose to dance with life every moment of my life? And so when we talk about regeneration in the context of food sovereignty, it is about people knowing who they are and recognizing that until the lion learns to write, the story always glorifies the hunter. Who will write my story? Who will tell it? And what's my story anyway? In Reclaim, we created our new story. Every moment, dancing with HIV and AIDS, dancing with the challenges of a child who doesn't have a parent, was an opportunity to know who I am, to recognize my calling and my purpose, and to choose to dance with life, to create my new story every moment. Again, for until the lion learns to write, the story always glorifies the hunter. My calling is to plant seeds and to awaken the love and light and the hope that is in everyone, so that everyone can step innate in our beingness. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Karambu. I wonder if, could you speak just a little bit about the how the land is now, the land that you were given that was just barren? What is it like now? I know it's not the same as it was when you first went there. Could you share a little story with us about that?
Yeah, definitely. So they had even tried to sell the piece of land to someone, and they couldn't. They said they couldn't grow anything on it. So what happened is that when we got the land, it was rocky, like literally it was full of rocks. And we took the rocks and started building with them. And where we removed the rocks, we brought soil mixed with manure and we put in those spaces. And it's in those spaces that we grew the fruit trees, flowers. And then on one side of the land, we did something that they call in permaculture double digging. So you dig 2 feet, you remove the topsoil, you dig another 2 feet, and then you put the topsoil in, you put a nitrogen adding plant above that, then you put manure, then you put the bottom soil on top now. And then you cover that land, you water it, and then you plant your crops there. I'm telling you, in this space where they couldn't grow kale, the easiest growing vegetable in Kenya, we were able to grow sweet potato, bananas, corn, and a variety of vegetables. So today it is lush, it is green, and you don't even see the rocks now. You have to really walk in the land, on the land, to go and find the rocks and things. So it is now a lush, beautiful space that the children now enjoy. They hide and seek, they play, they go and eat organic fruit as they play around and things like that. And that's the same thing that we've done with Tiriji. Tiriji Foundation is named after our Tiriji Eco Center. And it was also a monocropped piece of land. So if you go to Facebook and you check out Tiriji Eco Peace Center, Tiriji Eco Peace Center, and you go to the photos, look at the photos from the beginning, and you'll see how the land has changed. I mean, it's just amazing. Even yesterday, I shared on my Facebook, something about Tiriji and how it looks now. And it's so different from even my neighbor's farm, because now it is a food forest. So it is possible to do these things. But I will say something about when we want to transform the land, we must be transformed from within. I think this is a spiritual, food is a spiritual entity. I mean, you can imagine how it nurtures us. So farming is a spiritual practice as far as I'm concerned. And unless I am aligned within, I will plant whatever I plant, and it will not do as well as when I am aligned with the divine. And that alignment takes into consideration the trees, the plants, the animals, and the people, and our relationships. So it is a holistic beingness that informs this food production and process. And if we are not aligned, that is why you see how harmful we are, the harmful practices that you're bringing on the land. And that is why the land is screaming, like, awaken, just wake up. Yeah.
Gosh, thank you so much for all of the wisdom you've just shared with us. Friends, if you would, I hope you took notes, and it will just take a few moments to reflect again, like we did earlier, on what wisdom do you hear from this story, and how can you apply that to you, to your local context? What strikes you vividly? So I invite everyone to share these things if you want to in the chat, or to just write them down, or even to just sit and absorb and reflect for just one moment on these questions. Oh, can we open the chat, Rob, so everyone can? So I heard reclaim, and reclaiming wastelands, personal, social, and ecological, with responsibility, empoweredness, courage, love, and light, adjustedness, intuition, and mindfulness. That all challenges are opportunities to learn who we are, and to grow together. Thank you so much. So friends, we have just one more minute together before our program officially closes. I want to just give deep, deep gratitude to Dr. Karambu Ringera and to Joey Kyle for sharing their stories and their passion and their wisdom with us today, and to each of you for openness and joining in this invitation. I know each of us, as Dr. Ringera said, each of us has wisdom and intuition to bring to this sacred work of transforming our relationship to food, to land, to all of life. So know that your story has power and meaning and purpose as well, as we journey together on this sacred path. So I think if people want to stay a little longer, we'll close out officially, but maybe we could have just an informal Q&A with our two guests. If Joey and Dr. Ringera, are you willing to stay a few more minutes? Okay.
Sure.
So we'll close officially, and you're welcome to leave, or if anyone has, I guess Joey and Dr. Karambu, if you want to share anything else, I'll open it up for you to speak, or people can raise your hand or put in the chat if you have any questions. I see Bruce. Let's start with Bruce.
Hi, thank you both for such a wonderful presentation. Thank you, Ali, for organizing this. I'm going to speak about my experience on the other side of Africa in Côte d'Ivoire. In English, it's called the Ivory Coast, but the Ivorians who live there said that's not the name of our country. The name of our country is Côte d'Ivoire, not Ivory Coast. But anyway, the people all over West Africa, and I think over much of Africa, believe in sacred forests. And Westerners came in and said, no, you should cut down the forests and cultivate the land and that's the best thing for you to do. So some people did that, and what had been tropical rainforests getting a lot of rain wound up being cultivated land with no rain. And that taught me that traditional wisdom, traditional ways of thinking and doing things have wisdom that we need to pay attention to. And I wonder what our speakers have to say about that.
All right, I'm muted. Oh, definitely. I think, yeah, reforesting. Yeah, there's lots of instances where, yeah, just planting forests can completely change habitat. And then definitely we have to pay homage to indigenous peoples on this continent that have been cultivating maybe less traditional farmsteads than what we typically think, but have nonetheless created their own food forests. And that, yeah, like the permaculture is maybe a term that didn't really come out until like the 70s, but is rooted in indigenous practices that have been going on for hundreds and thousands of years. And we definitely need to pay attention to that. Like one example where I live is, yeah, the Cherokee are allowed to go into the Great Smoky National Park and be able to harvest sochan, which is like a beautiful pollinator-friendly plant that maybe gardeners don't include around here, but like it's pollinator-friendly and a beautiful green that is good for eating too. So we have a lot to learn, and it's a terrible thing if we can lose that knowledge from a top-down farming philosophy that really is short-lived and doesn't really show much merit in the long term. So yes, we must not lose those lessons.
Thank you, Joey, and welcome back, Dr. Karambu. I don't know if she heard your question, Bruce. I also wanted to ask if you could speak to the program that the United Nations UU office has with the Every Child is Our Child. It's a very similar program, and I'm wondering if they know each other, you know.
I don't think they do. They are different programs. Our program is in Ghana, and I say it's our program, and it's not our program. It's actually the program of the microbial queen mothers, and we have provided them with some assistance, but it really is their program, and we sometimes act like it's ours, but it's not ours, it's theirs. And they've done a wonderful job of helping AIDS orphans get an education, and the community takes care of these children. And it's a wonderful program. It's quite inspiring. But it really is their program, and we have been able to help thanks to donations. But yeah, it does sound similar it is similar to programs I've heard about in Kenya and Uganda and other places as well.
Hi, go ahead.
Who's going to talk?
Dr. Karambu, do you know the microbial queen mothers and the work they do in Ghana?
No, I don't know about them. Yeah, but I'll Google them now.
Doctor, let me raise another issue with you. You know the Kissi people in Kenya. And I lived in Kenya, so I know the Kissi people. And when I moved to West Africa, there's a town in Guinea called Kissidougou. And the people in Kissidougou in Guinea speak Kissi. And I asked them, is there any relationship between the Kissi of Kenya and the Kissi of West Africa? And they said some of the words are similar. And so I think African migratory patterns, where people migrated to one side of Africa or the other, I think there are relationships there that we haven't really fully explored. And I'm kind of fascinated by that.
That is true, actually, because even the Meru are said to Sea, and they name it in Kimeru. And so I agree with you. Or in that area, and it's also fascinating for me. I've been learning stuff about Egypt and the River Nile and the civilizations that lived there, and we the Meru who are in central Kenya, and we speak our languages are very, very similar. So I agree with you, Bruce.
Thank you. Joe Sipigora, do you have a question?
Yeah, Doctor, I'm aware of the fact that in some of the less developed nations, there have been outside influences from multinational corporations that sell fertilizers and seeds and other related products that
it's breaking up a lot.
Yeah, I mean, do you have any negative influences on, are you finding or have you experienced any of these outside influences, either in your farm or on other eco centers?
Ali, can you repeat the question for me, please?
Oh, I'm
Yes.
sorry. My
Joe,
understanding.
can you end your video? Dr. Ringera is having connection issues, so if we stop with our videos, it will be easier for her to hear us.
Okay, is that better?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, I'll try to speak a little louder too. My understanding is that there have been outside influences on some of the less developed nations in the world to adopt Western ways to buy their seed, to buy their fertilizers, as you mentioned. Have you found any undue influences there that are hard to resist, or have you personally experienced it, and are any other centers in Kenya experiencing it?
Yeah, there are seeds that are brought to us, and
yeah,
people perceive that these spaces, like the children's home and the work that we do, they look at us as some form of wasteland. You know, all those poor people. So when they bring these seeds and things, they expect us to just run and pick them, and I don't. And so they say that so they think that like I should be grateful that someone is trying to give me free things, but I try to explain why I do not take them, and I talk to people about researching the seeds. They can research Monsanto, they can research Bayer, they can research seed companies and the things that they are doing with seeds and things like that, even within our universities, and make the decisions themselves. But I also ask them to think about why is our area, our region, one with the highest incidence of cancer, and that was not the case before. Free, so that people can take them, and then you find that and in many ways, like some of which I talked about.
Thank you. So
another incident that I had where someone wanted to give me money for the children's home, but they were working with one of these. I actually refused to take their money.
Thank you. I'm assuming there is nothing that people in other countries can do about this, or is there? And if there is, please tell us.
Recently, I posted on my Facebook an article that was written by one of the media about in wheat production to get rid of the weeds before the wheat is harvested, and it is a poisonous chemical. And news in the newspapers, and I don't think the government is willing to do anything. And there are people who are definitely putting out this issue.
Yeah, I did have the soup.
If we join our voices together, people
Salad.
from the West, I think we can talk about these things and in ways that at least people will be aware, and then they will stop. Let me also say, when we talk about Africa as underdeveloped or these poor nations and things like that, it really kind of bugs me, because the resources in Africa is the reason why a lot of nations in the West are where they are today. I can share videos of people who are explaining very clearly why Africa has to perceive of itself as poor, when all the resources, most of the resources that are developing, everybody else are from Africa. So really it's up to us Africans also to wake up and to see who we are and to understand who we are, and to really start writing our story. So we need to decolonize ourselves first also.
Yes, thank you. The conversation in the chat about
is a big thing, and that is why the Ministries of Agriculture, the Ministry of Health, and all these other places do things that will help people, to help people in meaningful ways. So I see in the chat, it's a big, big problem. It's a big problem.
Friends, I think we'll close out now. Thank you so much, Dr. Ringera and Joey, for sticking around for a little bit of questions. If you would, people really loved hearing from you and would love to invite you to speak again to other groups. I got a message about that, or to follow the work that you're doing. If you would put in the chat if you're comfortable with any contact information you want to share, or websites where people can learn more. People definitely appreciated your presence with us, your sharing of your wisdom with us today, and would love to continue to follow and support your work. So thank you.
Thank you so much. I have put my email over there so people can contact me. Or and then we can continue the conversation.
Oh, and yes, and here are the slides from Dr. Ringera if you wanted to check out her slideshow. Okay, make sure you save the chat, everyone, if you wanted that information, and enjoy the rest of your break and the rest of the seminar. Thank you.